Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Laing. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Laing.
Welcome to Finding Certainty, everybody. Thanks for coming back and thanks for joining in. We're very pleased today to have a special guest, Mr. Adam Torres, CEO and founder of Mission Matters. He's one of the foremost experts in the world on our topic today. He's interviewed thousands of people on his podcast, helped publish over 250 books for authors, and is really one of the best at amplifying one's brand. So we're actually putting out a book together this fall that we'll be talking a little bit about. But Adam, thanks for being here, my friend.
Hey, Patrick, highlight of my week. I'm excited to finally connect and come on your show. So thanks for having me.
I feel the same way. Exactly. So I always start out the show talking a little bit about why I invited a guest on, and there are a couple of main reasons for that. I want to get into that. But first, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school, et cetera? And I want to get into your career and how you became the man, the myth, the legend, the master of Mission Matters. So,
yeah, Patrick. Well, I'm from the Midwest originally, so I'm a Michigander from Detroit, born and raised. Went to Michigan State, so I was I've been on the West Coast now, probably a little over 10 years or so, but Michigander at heart. I started out my career in finance, so I'd say 12, 14 years in finance, really before transitioning into media, publishing, podcasting, all that good stuff.
Right. So you're the co-founder and CEO of Mission Matters, but I know with your financial career and 14 years in the business there, you helped a lot of customers. I mean, you had a large portfolio and you actually had a really great career. And it's an interesting story, understanding how you transitioned from there to here. I know you refer to it in the podcast as the hero's journey. And I know it's not necessarily just referring to you, it's referring to every one of your guests, right? Because every entrepreneur who comes in and succeeds and makes a difference is a hero. But I'm really curious about how you turn from financial advisor to media personality. Yeah. Do you mind getting into that a little bit? How you created the platform, how this whole thing came about? And I think it's a really interesting story that many of our listeners will be interested in.
Well, first thing, I'm not going to claim it was some master plan. So the way you kindly tee that up, it sounds like I had it all planned out, right?
Right.
Not the case. So again, total financial advisor. When you think about my life at that time, working for a large company, went to work, had a great book of clients, amazing clients, and made good money. So I was happy, and I was thinking to myself, if I'm going to be a financial advisor for the rest of my life, I should probably own the business. So I decided to go independent. When I went independent, I did two things. First thing was I obviously had to do all the regulatory things that go into launching a firm. The second thing I did was my mentor at the time says, Adam, you got to write a book. And I'm like, I don't want to write a book. Why am I going to write a book? Like, I'm running a firm. I got other things to do. And he says, well, you have to brand yourself. People have to know your story. You have something interesting to share. And that's what's going to differentiate yourself from maybe some of your competition. So begrudgingly, I wrote my first book, and things changed like immediately. So maybe for me internally, like I hadn't changed as a person. I was still Adam, still the financial advisor. But what had changed is how people viewed me externally. So I found myself getting approached and getting like these cold calls about being a speaker or going to an event or doing all these things. I mean, I've been as far away as China on a speaking tour due to somebody reaching out to me cold on LinkedIn. So I was like, what's going on here? I didn't really quite understand it. And at that same time, other people started asking me, Adam, can you help me publish a book? Can you help me become an author? And I was like, no, I'm a financial advisor. I can manage your money. It's great. It's great, sir and ma'am, that you've been so successful and you want to write a book, but I can help you manage your money. So I, again, begrudgingly, I said, these are, amazing people with amazing stories. I fell in love with their stories. Like, these are people that I want to help if I can. And at some point, as that started to grow, it was kind of a decision. Like, you couldn't, in my opinion, maybe others can, like Elon Musk, or who knows, many other people that can launch and run big businesses, multiple of them. I can't. Like, I got Mission Matters. That's all I could do.
Right.
So I had to make that decision whether to, go the media route, help people with books and podcasting and marketing, and PR, or stay the financial advisor route. And little by little, that the media side just kind of pulled at my coattail, and it just kind of, one thing led to another. And I still remember when I gave up my licenses, my CFP, like my aims, like all those things, Series 63, 66, you name it, I had it all, entire career, to give that up. And my clients, like, to miss my clients and the people that I talked to for a long time. Wasn't an easy fit, but I just see this huge need in the marketplace for people to be able to tell their story, much the way and to that need platforms just like yours. So your platform is just such a huge service to the business community. Without platforms like this, people don't get to tell their story, and then the leaders don't get to kind of cut through the noise of maybe how some other media is done, where it's, let's just say, going after some clicks, right? Like,
Right.
it's just a different world. So
Right.
that's really what led us to Mission Matters when I finally made that switch.
Right. I want to get into that part of the story, what it is you do, and more of that transition. But let's back up just a minute, because you allude to having to give up those licenses, and I mean, you had them all. Like, you had your series licenses. You did insurance, you did trading, you did CFP. I mean, the list goes on, right? And you had launched your own RIA firm. I mean, this is big investment. This is years invested, right?
Don't remind me.
I mean, I've looked at those tests. I've taken some of those tests. I used to work in finance myself for several years, and that is no small undertaking, right? So I think it's a really interesting topic, if you will, really interesting discussion about how much work had gone into that, because many of our listeners are considering such a leap. They're considering such a transition. Yours came about kind of organically and naturally, but many of them are looking at it and planning for it, or at least considering it, right? And it's a daunting decision. I mean, I think for you, it was frightening even, right? It was overwhelming perhaps, because you'd put a lot into your career, and you actually, I know we've talked about this, you loved your career, right? It was like you hated your job and wanted to go find something new. Tell us more about why you enjoyed what you were doing so much, because I want to kind of juxtapose the difference between corporate America and having a salary and benefits and everything, to going into business for yourself. I think it's a really important topic. I think it's really interesting to a lot of people. So what was it that you enjoyed so much about your job, who you worked with, who you worked for? I think it's an important question.
Well, I liked corporate America, as I mentioned before. So I mean, I was a fan. My managers were awesome. I don't remember ever having a bad manager at any of the investment firms that I worked with. So, and then the companies I worked with, the Vanguards, the Schwabs of the world, like Raymond James, like these were all like amazing companies with great leadership structures and great compensation. And so I was okay. Like, there was no issue there. If I really would have to kind of track the decision, it was really thinking about just ownership. And if I'd already decided that was going to be my career for the rest of my life, of being a financial advisor. So if it wasn't for that decision of understanding that I was, I love my job, I love what I did, helping people to really, plan out their futures, manage their money, and really get security, right? If I didn't love that piece of it, I would have never made that decision that I was going to, start my own firm, because starting a firm or starting anything is hard. Like, first thing everybody told me is, are you crazy? You're going to start a firm? Why? Like, you're doing good. You're happy. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, why rock the boat? But in my mind, the thought process behind of does it make sense for somebody to be an entrepreneur, start a business or not? I don't really think that I was moving into entrepreneurship in my head. I was just going to be doing the same thing I was doing, but for myself. So it's a little bit different. I didn't have some new novel idea. I never wanted to invent something or create some new process or way of improving something. In my mind, I was just going to be going to do something else, on my own, that was going to be doing the same thing I do, but for myself. Or
Right.
so that's what I thought, right?
Well, I think you were, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think
Yeah.
you're probably just thinking maybe a little more money, maybe a little
Yeah.
more control, a little more freedom, right? If I want a day off, I can do that. I don't have to really be responsible.
No, no way.
Hold on to
No
anyone.
way. I knew all of my clients were entrepreneurs. I knew it would be the complete opposite. That's not how it works. My book of business was probably 80% business owners.
I
So I
bet.
knew what I was going into. It's the complete opposite. No days off. It all goes back to you. And at a
Yeah.
certain point, when the business is big enough, maybe you can take your foot off the gas pedal and groom somebody younger to not have any days off. So I knew what I was signing up for, the complete opposite. And in terms of freedom, no way. Freedom is when you work
Freedom?
for a
What's that?
big, that's when you work for a big corporation and it's 9 to 5. And after 5, you don't have to worry about anything else except going back the next day, being on time and doing your job. That's
Right.
freedom, like going out there and having to eat what you kill on a weekly basis and bring in payroll. That's heavy.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's actually a really good point. I think that many people who either become an accidental entrepreneur like you, or, and I know that's a phrase you've used,
Oh
or
yeah.
those who are actively planning it, pursuing it, something they've always wanted to do, right? There's this saying at JOB, just over broke, and so many kind of label a job as a negative thing. And yet we all know people who have had extraordinary careers. They've spent their entire life working in corporate America or working for a small business without having to wear all the hats and have all the stress and all the demands that fall on an entrepreneur's shoulders. I guess my point is that many times I think entrepreneurs go into this not really understanding what they're getting into. They don't have. We have kind of these rose-colored glasses, right, about entrepreneurship, and so when I talk about freedom, or I talk about income, or I talk about control, and it's almost an ill-perceived notion, right?
Yeah. Well, any entrepreneur that's built a business to a certain level, over and above, and maybe the outliers could be some individuals that have a 100% or 90% automated business, or they found a very specific niche and they make a good living. There's some outliers to that, but anybody that's running a business that has to do with people, like managing people, like, yeah, there's that's a dream right there. No, if you're managing people, it gets messy.
Yeah. And that's really the dream of all of us, is to get the business to a point where we do have some autonomy. We can leave and go to Europe for a month. We can have someone else dealing with the headaches. We can outsource and hire out many of those responsibilities and those headaches, right? I tell my wife that all the time. I tell my partners that. I said, my goal is to be able to hire everything I do out, right? I have a virtual assistant that helps. We talked about that on our show last week, about virtual assistants and how they can take off some of those things off of our plates, free up some of our time. And it absolutely works. I mean, it is a true principle. But I think that's the goal of all of us, to eventually get to that point where we have time freedom as much as anything. I mean, the income is great and that's important, but time is even more important to most of us, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we're jumping ahead here, but I wanted to, as I said, I like to introduce my guests, and your story is so interesting. I think I'm drawn into it, if I may say so. But I like to explain why I bring a guest off, and if you're listening to this, everybody, you're starting to see a little bit about this mentor and friend and just icon that is Adam Torres. I think the two main reasons that I wanted you all to hear from him is really twofold. Number one, he's a really interesting example of someone who became an accidental entrepreneur. He didn't plan it. It's evolved. It's happened. And that's the case for many of us. We didn't set out to become an entrepreneur. You know, I enjoyed working for others for a long time, right? And so your story resonates with mine a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. But so I think many people are either listening and considering entrepreneurship, or they're in the process of starting their own business or trying to build their own business, and they need to hear your story because it puts in light, it shines a light on these really important questions. Secondly, Adam and his company, Mission Matters, are one of the best content providers, content builders of anyone I've ever known in my career. And you are just a fantastic example of a company and a CEO who is doing exactly what we said, the title of this show, right? You're amplifying people's brands. And that's something that most of us as entrepreneurs want to do, right? I mean, there's very few of us who want to fly under the radar. We may be, maybe some defense contractor or something like that. But in most cases, we want to get our brand out there, right? And so we're going to be talking on this show today about how you've done that, how others can do it, how we've done it, maybe with our company as well a little bit. But it's a very interesting topic. And so really glad you're here. We're going to get into lots more detail. But as I look at your career and as you've transitioned to where you are, you didn't have to be your own boss. Talk about how being an entrepreneur is hard. Everything's on you as a CEO. I mean, it's an important insight, right? If you're considering starting your own business, anyone who's listening to this, you need to make sure you know what you're getting into. Don't just do it, happenstance. Just don't just try to wing it. Too many entrepreneurs do that. That's why so many businesses go out of business. They go into it kind of with their eyes half closed and this unrealistic expectation of how easy it's going to be. And it's not, right? It is absolutely not. So anyway, it's an interesting discussion. We're up against our first break. And so if you're listening, guys, please come back. We've got lots more to break down here with Mr. Adam Torres, and I think you'll be very interested to hear what he's doing to amplify brands and how he can help you as well. So thanks again, Adam. We will be right back, folks, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, perfect. Good job, guys. We're all clear. Back in about 2.
All right.
You're doing great, my friend.
Good stuff.
You're the expert. So the next section, I really want to get into more of your transition because I love the accidental entrepreneurship or entrepreneur concept. And yet let's juxtapose it with those who are trying to do it, are planning to do it, right? They have a plan, or they think they do. Because I think that one thing that you can talk about is if the roles were reversed, if you had set out to plan out this transition, what are some of the lessons you've learned that you would have done differently, right? I think it's an important question. So when we come back from break, I think we should chat a little bit more about your transition. Talk a little bit about Mission Matters and what it does. I think just your story is really cool. And then we can get into. I think we should talk a little bit about the book coming up and kind of trailing off of the publishing side. Maybe talk about the. Now you started the publishing side first, and then the podcasting side second. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
And yet you've interviewed over 5,000 people. So when was the podcast side of it initiated?
5 years ago now.
And when did you start the publishing part?
Probably 7 years ago.
Okay.
Or 6 years ago, maybe like a year difference.
Yeah. And did you start with something else before the publishing? I
No.
mean, when did Mission Matters start officially? 7 years
Mission
ago?
Matters probably started. The original brand was called Money Matters.
Oh, okay.
So and that was because I was a financial advisor. So the original platform was all about money, and then it grew into something bigger. So
Sure.
that's how it transitioned into Mission Matters, because our audience and just what we were doing, we look back, like I said, you look back at content
Yeah.
and you figure out what you're actually doing
Sorry to
versus
interrupt,
what you
guys.
plan.
We're coming back.
Okay.
You are listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Thanks for coming back, everybody. And we're with my good friend, Adam Torres, CEO and founder of Mission Matters. They're a publishing company. They're a podcast phenom with you've done over 5,000 podcast interviews, Adam. You're in the top 5% of all podcasts. That's amazing. And you also do PR, you do marketing, you do a number of things for your clients, right? So I want to get into a little bit more about your story, what it is you guys do and how you do it, because it's really unique. But if I remember right, you actually mentioned this earlier, but you had a mentor or someone who kind of encouraged you to publish your own book at first, right? And
Yeah.
how long from when he first told you should do this to when it actually happened? Is this something he had to kind of ride you about for a couple of years? Was it pretty quick? I mean, how did your first book come about, if I may?
Well, it took a solid year to write and to get my first book out, and I really just started dictating it into a phone. So I had a I think Dragon like audio recorder or something like that, and I just started talking. Really, I could talk, and I started doing that, and a little bit over time, like that, like talking out my chapters and thoughts and things like that. Then organize them, put them together, and let's just say that first book, that's my ugly duckling. So it's not the content's great. I mean, it's me, it's my words, but the let's just say the quality of the publishing, the cover, all the other things, like it was my first time. It definitely reeks of being self-published, let's say. So but I got it out there, and for anybody listening, I'm not over here saying that you have to go through a publisher or that you have to do anything really, but I'm of the camp of, if you got a story inside of you and you want to get it out and you feel that it can do any value to anybody, I don't care. You don't have to go through a company like Mission Matters. Go self-publish, do something, but get your book out.
That's a great comment. Many of us, I think we feel like we have a story. We just don't know where to start, or we may even feel like we don't have a story. We don't have something that would be of interest to people, or we don't feel like we could put it into a format that would be interesting or would be engaging or impressive, maybe, right? And yet, referring to your career as a financial advisor, I mean, you had acquired over a decade of experience that had real value. I mean, you were licensed, you had, I don't know how many thousands of conversations you'd had with customers and thousands of training workshops and courses. And I mean, you were working with some of the best in the business, right? I mean, we talk about names like Vanguard and Schwab and Raymond James. I mean, these guys wrote the book on the business, right? And so you're a great example of someone who had acquired real life skills and real value in your field of in your field, right? And so when you started your own firm, you gained additional skills, additional insights. You had this mentor who I think was really smart in coaching you to get your brand out there. And again, you've said before, you didn't know how to do that. You'd never published a book. You were really just making it up as you went along, right? And yet you took his advice, and then you started getting traction from it that you didn't even expect to get. I mean, why is it, do you think, that a book did that for you? Because I've seen it before. I've seen it for ourselves.
Mhm.
Why is a book such a phenomenal tool for any entrepreneur who's trying to get their message out, do you think?
Well, the first thing I can tell you is I know why I gained traction. And this is where people that are professionals, especially, don't get it. And this is one of the things. So as we work with the individuals that we publish, a big part of that is teaching them how to get the most value out of their investment in publishing, right? Marketing costs money. So the reason is that first year, I probably gave out 1,000 books. So what happens is this, like I'm a financial advisor, I have a big ticket item, right? So I'm managing money. Why am I going to try to make a couple dollars off of selling a book? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use the book as my business card. I'm going to give it to everybody I meet with. Even over and above the idea of giving them out to as many people as you can that makes sense to give it to, they talk. So when somebody hears about it, then another person hears about it, then another person hears about it. And then what happens over time is that somebody's actually read your book. The problem with most people that publish books or just in general is that they go into it with the wrong expectation. They put it on Amazon, they're ready to sell it. And all of a sudden, okay, they sell a couple hundred books and great. And then it's done. It's
Right.
like, wow, like what a waste. Like the idea is to understand that your story is your story. Like if you look at many books out there that have gone into bestsellers and now gone on to become franchises like Chicken Soup for the Soul or other things like that, which is part of how we built our model. So just to quickly explain, Chicken Soup
Right.
for the Soul was a group of individuals that were brought together. Each person wrote a chapter. So think about like the original book with Jack Canfield and Deepak Chopra. We do the same thing on our end. We just do it with entrepreneurs. So we bring entrepreneurs together and business owners and executives, and we come together in a collaborative spirit to create a book on business lessons and leadership and topics that we believe that the overall community can benefit from. But in part of our thing is that, the more people that can get involved in this collaboration, the better. And on my end, like myself as a promoter, I'm giving out books constantly. I was handing out books yesterday. Why? Because I want people to know about your story that'll be coming up once we have you published and everybody else that's come through these doors in terms of publishing and us getting their story out there. So the misconception from people that aren't, let's just say, in publishing or in media and other things. And this is also what I actually was lucky to have had a great mentor that kind of taught me some of this in advance. So I didn't go out into this with the wrong expectation. It's not about, can I be bestseller? Can I sell millions of books? Can I do that? Okay, that's all great. And that can happen. And it does happen for many over the course of many years. But if you're a professional and you have a business that you can promote right now through your story as a founder, because you've done something that's interesting, or you have something of value, a message or a lesson that you learned on your journey and around the way, or on your journey into getting where you're at, then like that's the reason to do it. And that's the reason behind getting out there and promoting your work and your message. It's not about self-promotion. Look at me. It's about how do you add value? Like your story is of value to somebody. You don't know if somebody who reads your story and how you're going to affect them. But I can tell you now, being on the other side of things, getting emails and all the like inbound things that come in my way and that come across my desk, to see like how people's lives are changed from these stories. I mean, it's gratifying, and it's something that it kind of lets us know that we're headed in the right direction as a company.
Right. Well, you've published over 250 authors now, right?
Can't even believe it. That's crazy. Yeah.
That's amazing. And, you hit on a really important point, because I think if you go into writing a book hoping to make millions of dollars from it, hoping to, sell it and have a big bestseller, make the movie someday,
Yeah.
that's the 1%, right? That's the exception to the rule. It does happen, but it's not and shouldn't be the purpose for writing that book, especially as a small business or as an entrepreneur who's building his or her brand. The key is, I think, twofold. One is to get your message out there, and have one more way of telling your story, as you said. Secondly, it does establish credibility for you. I mean, I just was in a training workshop, I guess, for a friend and mentor of mine, a guy named Bill Walsh, who's a billionaire. He owns a company called Power Team International, Rainmaker. He said, literally, if you had a title selected and say, my book's coming out next year, that builds credibility for you, even if before the book has come out, and let alone once it's been published. So whether it's self-published, whether it's published by a firm like yours that does such a great job. I mean, obviously quality does carry a lot of weight, but just getting it out there, you can now say, I'm a published author. You can now say, you can put it on your signature line, you can put it on your LinkedIn, and that is instant credibility, at least until they read it. And, if it's not very well written, it's not published, has an ugly, title page, or an ugly cover, that might not help you. So
I'm on the other side. I'll
right.
tell you, all that initial success, that tour, everything else came from the ugly cover and the ugly book. So the point is that with all of this, it's the price of admission. It's the ticket. You don't even to get booked as a paid speaker, period. You have to have something other than what the individuals around you have. It's just it's the ticket. You can't, it's the price of admission.
Right.
At the very basic level, because many people that's just, and I don't know how or why I didn't create that system, but I can tell you, being on the other side of it, that everything that I was told leading up was all accurate.
Well, it's absolutely right. I want to talk a little bit about our book that's coming out this fall, but to that point, it's not just publishing either. It can be a podcast, a radio show like ours. It can be a blog. It can be public speaking events. The more of these things you're doing as an entrepreneur, they're all just building your brand. They're building your credibility. I was almost floored, to be perfectly honest, by the response I've gotten just by launching a Voice America radio show, right? I've done I've been here 2 minutes, right? We've done 5 episodes, right? And I'm already getting invited to come speak at events, and I'm meeting just different influencers who want to be on the show, who want me to be on their show. All of that has come about almost surprisingly quickly, just since we began this, right? I mean, you are the by far the biggest influencer in this, I say, media personality that we've had on our show. So we're very honored to have you here. I mean, you've done 5,000 shows. I've done 5, right? But I'm already seeing the value that's come out of that. And I think it applies in a lot of areas. You get yourself out there. Does not have to be perfect. You said it right. I mean, my shows are not perfect. I stumbled over things. And once I forgot to start the recording, I mean, there are multiple examples of how we learn while we're doing, right? And it's the best way to learn. We can talk about it forever. We can fall into the rut of analysis paralysis, but whether it's starting a business, promoting our brands, the best way to do it is just to do it, to just start, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our first podcast, I didn't want to do that, just like I didn't want to do the first book. I didn't want to do the podcast. The only reason we even started a podcast was because the other co-founders you know what, Adam, you should do this. I think we can sell some more books. And I'm like, I don't want to do a podcast. I never heard a podcast before. What is it? So I didn't even know. And I started the first podcast with a set of headphones. I mean, iPhone headphones, my cell phone. So an iPhone 6 at the time, I feel like. And I recorded almost 300 episodes on that thing before I even decided to invest in a mic or anything else, or before I even thought about it. And I used an on-phone recording app. I didn't even use anything as professional as Zoom or anything else. And the interesting thing was we built an audience, just like the ugly book. That was the Ugly Duckling podcast. And I did zero prep. And I just started, I would, bring guests on there, and it was interesting to see the response, and it was interesting to see that people were still in. These were the very early episodes weren't even edited. I would record them, put them right up. And the thing is, the audience grew, the following grew, and it was like, okay, I guess I'm stuck doing a podcast now because that wasn't going to change at that point. And then the demand grew as well to be on the show. And then at a certain point, we kind of internally as an organization created the structure, even though I'm CEO and I run the company, to where, we bring on directors and other individuals that do, they're amazing, and we could not do this without our directors within the company. But to where, a good portion of my time is in front of the media and doing interviews because it's now built into Mission Matters. We didn't plan that though. We thought we were doing publishing and marketing and PR and getting other people's words out there and amplifying their stories, which is still our mission on our show. But when you say do it, I mean, come on, iPhone, headphones, over 300 shows, and we did that quick.
Fantastic, man. And now you're teaching others how to create their own podcasts, right? You're multiplying your own mission and seeing it amplified in other people's lives, which I absolutely love. I talk a lot about the ripple effect of when you start something and these ripples start coming out of and influencing and affecting and impacting others.
Mm-hmm.
Your book, Mission Matters, the business series, is a great example of that. We've got about 2 more minutes before our next break, but talk a little bit about the book that's coming up. It's volume 8.
Yeah.
And essentially, anyone who's listening, it's a compilation of lessons from CEOs who were invited to be in the book, who teach a lesson from their careers. But it's CEOs whose companies are making a difference for the most part, right? Is that a fair summation?
It is. And when you talk about making a difference, there's a lot of different ways to evaluate that. The main thing is, and I like to always get across, is that we're not an elitist organization. So we're not the type of organization that says, you have to have 10, 20, 30 million in revenue. You have to do this and that. What we're looking for is the story. Like some of my favorite people that I've published and that I've actually interviewed were actually, small businesses, a couple person shop, and they were doing amazing work, and they had just this heart of gold in what they were trying to accomplish. And what I find is, and we've also published, we have number 2 in line at a 40,000 person organization, EXP Realty. So like we've published and everything in between. So what we really do is we scour the business community for great stories. So we're all about the story. So when I kind of always like to lead with that, so people understand that we're trying to get the best story out of it, because it's not just about, okay, what have you done and how much money have you made and this and that. No, it's like, how are you innovating? Like, how are you approaching your business? What can I learn from your story? And myself, having, interviewed all those individuals, published all those individuals, I learn from every single book. Like what books do I read? Anybody asks, I say, oh, I read our books. Why? Because they're good. They're page turners. They're made to be, think of it like a good Netflix series. You get done with one, if a really good episode, and then you can't help but to watch the next one. So Netflix and created bingeable content. We'll say that model. On the book side of things, that's how Mission Matters books are designed. They're designed to be bingeable content. I want you to read one chapter and say, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Okay. And then you see the next one and you're like, before you know it, you're like, okay, I didn't plan on spending that extra hour or 2 reading, but you're still doing it.
Right.
And in my mind, I might be self-interested as a publisher, but I want people doing more reading than watching Netflix nowadays, especially if you're on the entrepreneur track, because watching Netflix isn't going to get you there.
Right. That's a really good point. We've got to go to break, but that bingeable content becomes bingeable amplification, right? This ripple effect of that person's story translating to their brand and who they are. And some extraordinary things happen from that. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of Adam Torres I want to get into the podcast side of this because I think there's more to talk about there, how it's come about, what you've learned from this process that can benefit our listeners. So we'll be right back, folks. Hang in there. Thanks, Adam.
All right, great segment, guys. All clear. Back at about 2.
All right.
Going
Good
well.
stuff.
Yeah, it's really good. We are we probably have about 10 minutes left in the last segment. Time's going fast. So
That's a good sign. When it goes fast, it means it's going good.
It always amazes me how fast the time flies by because you think we got to fill up a whole hour of information, and it's not very hard.
Yeah.
I mean, and you have lots to share. So yeah, I'm enjoying this. Thanks for being here.
No, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Good way to end a Friday. All good. All good. Yeah, it's funny. I think about how the idea of the first show and all of that, it used to be so funny, Patrick. Like you'd die laughing like I would, because I was like, I didn't want to do it. So
Right.
I had I would record the episode, I'd edit it, and I pushed like the distribution thing like really quickly. And so the episodes would be up like 5 minutes after somebody did it, because I would block off an hour for the meeting. I would record for like 30 minutes and then I'd have it all up because I didn't want to look at it again.
That's funny.
And it was just an experiment. Like the other co-founders, like, you got to do it. I'm like, what are we doing? What are you talking about? What is a podcast?
Well, I'm interested in what the benefits you've seen that have come out of it are. You know,
yeah, it is funny.
We talk about amplifying brands. What does that do for business? So I know you have lots of experience in that, and so we'll talk about multiple strategies and attacking it from different
10
angles
seconds.
and get into TikTok and all that.
All right, here we go.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
We're back with Finding Certainty and our special guest, Mr. Adam Torres, good friend of mine and CEO of Mission Matters. We were talking, Adam, prior to the break about this book series that's coming out. It's your 8th volume, over 250 authors published. Talk a little bit more, if you will, about this upcoming, what do we want to call it, version or how do you refer to it?
I say it's a book launch.
The volume,
We're
right?
launching a book,
Upcoming
Patrick,
volume.
and I'm excited. I'm excited to have you be a part of it, and all of the press and the promo and everything that goes into a book launch. It's interesting to see these things build over time. So we'll be doing a full interview series of the book launch itself with all of the authors. So on our podcast, Mission Matters Business, so people can check that out. But we'll be bringing on each one of the authors and doing a full depth, 30-minute to 45-minute interview on what they wrote, what they brought to the table, and also get a little bit further into the author's background and just what makes them tick. Like at Mission Matters, that's what we're all about, is trying to explore the mission that an author brings, but also the reasoning behind it. Like what being an entrepreneur, getting out there, doing it, it's not easy. Like what gets them out of bed in the morning and fired up to go out there and really make a difference.
Right. You know, as we were talking about your story, how you really became this accidental entrepreneur. It came about without your planning for it. Many others make the plan. They've always wanted to be an entrepreneur and they tackle it. We all learn from our mistakes. We all learn from the growing periods and the stretching and so forth. But talking about the book series, I love the fact, and we were talking about earlier about how You can self-publish, right? Your first book was, you call it, you refer to the ugly cover, and it wasn't, you could tell it was self-published. It wasn't the best quality. They've gotten better and better since then, obviously. But there are advantages to partnering with someone like you who understands the industry, who's going to promote the book, who puts out really extraordinary content. I was honored to have been asked. I know we're going to be on the cover together. You even asked me to write the introduction, which was amazing. I talked about how, as you'll see in the book coming out, I compared leadership in business to fishing, because I'm a fly fisherman. And there's some interesting parallels there. I talked about a challenging experience I went through with an employer that really burned me and several employees. But I think it's really important that anyone who's listening understand that you can do it on your own. But if you partner with someone like Mission Matters, like your team, it's going to be a far better process. It's going to be faster. The end result, the end product is going to be significantly better. I think it goes without saying, I guess, do it by yourself. You're never going to do it as well as if you hire some professionals to help. So any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, there's always a cost, right? Like there's a cost for everything. So I would say what really killed me on that first book was opportunity cost. So doing it myself before I had a publishing company and editors and all the things that go into publishing and marketing arm, it took me away from my business, period. Like it was a big distraction. Like I knew I needed to do it. I knew it had to get done. It wasn't like front of mind. Obviously, when you're starting a new business, the main thing is getting clients, but you have to kind of juggle that with other large priorities. So the opportunity cost of me doing it, I wish I had a Mission Matters or a company like that, like when I was doing it, because if you think that I would have, spent all those hours over the course of a year, I just didn't even know, and I still don't know if another company quite exists like ours, but I didn't know if, I just didn't know any that existed. So I had to do it. I thought that was the only way to do it. Right. So the opportunity cost was big. It was big. And I thought, no, and that's why after I was done with that book, when others were asking me to help them publish books, that's why I said pretty boldly, no way, I'm never publishing another book again. I hate books. I'm not doing it. It's because it was such a process. Like, and for anybody that's done it on their own and not worked with any publisher or any company, maybe you had the time or the inclination or you just fell in love with it. And for some people, they will do that. Like if that was their experience, like, speaking of the 1%ers, if some people, they decide they want to go full time into being an author and into speaking and all those things, I mean, that's a grind in itself. You're an entrepreneur just of another type. Right. I like to say, well, get ready to be on the road for, a couple hundred days a year, and get ready for, if you're not already a name or a celebrity, get ready to do a lot of free speaking as you start building up your name, and get ready to do a lot of driving and investing in other things, which, by the way, for some people, they love it. That's what they like to do. I'm okay with that. I'm not judging them, but for me, that sounded like misery. The last thing I wanted to be was on the road for 200, days a year, and to be speaking for free, and to be staying in hotels and all these other things. No, thank you. Like a speaker's life was not really my thought process. So I was just a professional that knew I need to get a book out. I was like, I need to get a book out. I need to tell a story. I want to help. So I want to brand myself, but I also want to help people, because that first book was all about finance and my experience as a financial advisor. And I knew that I could help anybody that read that book. I knew I was going to help them through my experience as an advisor, because I know I had unique insight, because my views and what I'd done. It's not saying that it had some groundbreaking idea, but I do know that when you hear something from one person versus another, you don't know which voice or which words are going to resonate. So everybody has a different opportunity to connect with individuals. So I knew that some people I'd connect with, and I'd have the ability or the potential to really change their lives.
Right. Well, it doesn't surprise me that you had so many people coming to you saying, "Can you help me? I'm interested in writing the book. I need your mentorship," because it's all about learning curve, and especially because your focus is really on business, right? On small business and on business and business leadership and entrepreneurs. Most of us out there who have anything to share, and we have the experience, we've been in the trenches, we've gone through those ropes, right?
Yeah.
We don't have time, right? I talked about virtual assistant and trying to give away some and hiring it out and so forth. But most of us are wearing multiple hats. We're spread thin. We're working 80-hour weeks, et cetera. And so who has the time to sit down and write a book? I mean, one of the things you guys do is you'll even have a ghostwriter help them write their chapter. I wrote my own, many of them do, but sometimes they get that help, and just having the guidance and the direction from your team. I've experienced it, having a deadline, having the coaching, having an editor. There's so much value to that. Really accelerated that learning curve and accelerated the process. I've been talking about writing a book or publishing something for years.
Yeah.
Until I met you, it had never happened, right? Mostly because of time. And so anyway, we can keep going about that, but let's jump into how you attack amplifying a brand in more than just the publishing way. I mean, you do it through PR, through marketing, you do it through your social media. I mean, you put out more content than most organizations could even imagine doing. You do it through your podcast. So let's talk about that, about attacking it from multiple angles, because I think it's something the listeners, any entrepreneur out there needs to remember. It's not a one-trick pony. You can't just do it in one way, right? You have to be multidimensional, if you will.
So what I tell people is start with one thing, but like build layers on it. So if you only have time to write one article, one newsletter, one anything, start with one thing. But after you kind of just think about it like you're in the gym working out, right? You start with, let's just say, one small 5-pound plate on a bar, right? Let's say that's you doing your first piece of content, whatever that's going to be, whatever platform, doesn't matter. Like start with that one thing and then start adding more plates to the bar when you're ready and capable. Like you don't have to do everything at one time. A big mistake that a lot of people like in our community and circle make is that they look at what I'm doing and it's like, no, but this is my full-time job. There isn't another thing I do. So when I create all this content or vlogs or all these other things that I'm doing, that's because that's actually my job, right? And I created my business to have the infrastructure and support to allow me that time to do that.
Right.
So that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing is, let's see.
Well,
the second thing is, once you mastered one piece of content. So for us, it was books. We are 2 years in business and figuring out publishing before we started the podcast. Like I wasn't out here trying to jump from one thing to the next. So for some people, they're like 2 years. Yes, 2 years before we even did that. And then when after we started doing the podcast, even that part of it, we took our time. So I probably did 3,000 episodes, maybe 3,500 episodes, only audio, before we decided to add a video component. So most people, they go in there, they try to do everything else. And so think about that. I was a podcaster for years before I even thought about bringing on video. And then when I brought on video, that added another layer of complexity. But with that layer of complexity, brought more reach, right? But if you try to do everything at one time, then what typically happens is you get nothing done, or you have a lot of false starts and you never really build a solid foundation or brand. And you never really, as a creator, not just a business owner, but as a creator, you never get to figure out what you actually like. Like you might love writing. You might want to do a lot of books. You might love podcasting and decide you don't like to do books. You might love social media and decide, you know what, I just want to be on social media. That's what I want to create. But all of those things have the ability to play together and work together. And if you combine all of those things out there, all of those tools over time with a good strategy and plan, then some really interesting things can happen when you go to build your brand. And then when people Google you, they're not looking at like, should I do business with this person or who is this person? They're then it kind of changes. It kind of becomes, whoa, okay, yeah, we were thinking about this company or that company. I can't find them anywhere. this is what you do.
Right.
And so even doing interviews like this and being interviewed. So I can't tell you how much business we've gotten because somebody sees an interview like this and they're like, oh, and then what, and how you know this happens, by the way, is because they volunteer information about you that you never talked to them about. You're like, how did they know that? And you're like, oh, I said that on Patrick's show, or oh, I said that over here. Oh, I said that over there. So you understand that people are digesting your content.
Right. We're experiencing that. I mean, you're even doing TikTok now and other things. I know a lot of people don't realize TikTok is for business. We don't have time to go into it now, but we could do a whole nother episode, Adam, which we should do in the future and break down marketing in general, TikTok, YouTube, all these other aspects. We are coming up on the end of our show. How do people get a hold of you if they want to learn more, want to reach out about the book, the marketing you do, how to start their own podcast? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Real simple, missionmatters.com, easy to remember, missionmatters.com. And then ask Adam Torres on Twitter or anywhere, TikTok, wherever you want to go. Ask Adam Torres if you ever want to connect with me personally.
I highly endorse you, my friend. I've experienced it myself. I'm experiencing it with the publishing of the book, with the marketing you're doing and the promotion. I mean, you are a man of your word. You do what you say you will. You are not just amplifying your brand or amplifying others' brands. It's an absolute privilege, absolute pleasure being a part of it all with you. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Patrick. Too kind.
My pleasure. Everybody, thanks for being here with us. We will be back again next Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to learn more, as Adam said, reach out to him at missionmatters.com. You can also text the word certainty at CERTAINTY to 26786. We'll have someone from our team reach out to you by the next business day and either put you in touch with Adam or answer any questions you have about what we do. Thanks so much. Thanks for being here on Finding Certainty. Always a pleasure, Adam. We'll talk lots more.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right, awesome. Great show today, guys. All clear.
Thanks, Matt. Or thanks, Aaron.
All right.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank
Have a good
you.
weekend, guys.
Thanks, Adam.
Oh man, it's Friday. The voice cracked.
That's all right. I keep a bottle of water here. I never end up drinking it because I'm talking too much or engaged. But
Same here. I never do either, but it's Friday. The voice
Yeah.
cracked. I was like, oh wow, that hasn't happened in a while. Weekends I don't talk that much, Patrick. Don't.
It's all good. I know how much you talk during the week. I'm surprised you have a voice at all.
Yes, sir. All right.
That was good. I had a good time. Thanks for
It was
being
awesome.
on
Thank you
with
for having
me.
me. Seriously, it's a
And,
great program, great show. I can see like your skill set is building. It's just going to keep on like getting better and better. It was fun. It was fun and it's fun to see you on the other side of the mic too. It's fun. I'm like, yeah. And I love it. I love the program that they're doing over there. It's great. And I've seen now this is my second experience on their shows. And like how they bring in the engineer and everything else, like it's really cool. They have a great setup.
Yeah, it's I've been very impressed. I like having the intro and the ads in the middle and the outro.
Yeah.
Just, you know,
I looked them up and I mean, they've been in
really unique.
business a long time. Like I
Yeah.
saw their Wikipedia and everything else. I think I don't know if they started as a governmental organization or what it was, but it was kind of like, or that might be how it was launched originally. But if you read I don't know if you read their Wikipedia, but if you read their Wikipedia, they're a really interesting company. Like they're really good.
Yeah, I should introduce you to Robert Cellino. He's the general manager. I mean, you should start a Mission Matters channel on Voice America because you already have the skill set, you have the content, but I mean, you could literally record one of your guests even and just post it to Voice America. It just gives you another channel speaking about multiple angles, but it might be something that you should consider. I know they don't take on too many shows, but I think you'd be very interested in speaking to you if you wanted to. So
Yeah.
You do a far better job than me. I'm learning as I go.
No, man, you're good. You're good. It's just a conversation. And the thing is your approach and your, you sound like you both when you're recording, when you're not recording. So that's the key. Like all the other stuff, I mean, if you can do that, then that's like 90% of the battle. Everything else is just going to come as you just relax in the chair and get more things, but you sound the same now. So you don't get like weird radio announcer voice or
Right.
like all the other like things. If you don't do that, it's great, man. It's great.
Well, and you do this really well. I asked my mentor, who's the GM of Voice America. Well, I was, and I think I told you this story, but I was a guest on one of the shows.
Yeah.
And when we were done, he said, the host, Frank Hellring, he said, you need to get this message out because we're all about empowering small business, right? Thinking outside the box, working together. And he said, you should meet Robert Cellino. And when I first met Robert, I said, I'm not Frank. He's really high energy. I mean, his show is called Business Buzz, and I'm more laid back. I'm more kind of even killed. And he said, the most important thing, and I think you do this really well, Adam. He said, the most important thing you can do as a host is to be authentic. Don't try to be something you're not. Don't try to be someone you aren't. Just be authentic. And so I do try to do that. And I've been doing that for 30 years,
Yeah.
So it comes naturally. But anyway, it's good advice. I think the mechanics of it all, I'm figuring that part out. But
yeah,
the core authenticity and experience, that's easy for me.
It's good.
All
right, Patrick. Well, it has
time.
been fun. All right, let's get back to it, man. Get back to work. I'll do the same.
All right. We'll have it out today, and I'll get you the link as soon as it's done.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll share it just like I shared all the promo and stuff. So I'll share this as well. Okay. Thank you so much for having me on.
You bet. Thanks, boss.
Appreciate it. Bye.
See ya.